This is a quick introduction to what will hopefully be a series that I can keep making reliably. The idea is, since people don't like reading, and that is, I'm included in that, I don't blame people for that, I'm gonna basically do a reading of the script, of the Outskirts script, and I'm just gonna upload it, just do some basic editing to make it concise. And people are going to be able to watch it in the background in that way while doing other tasks, or if people don't like reading, it might make it easier for them to focus. I'm just hoping this helps me with getting feedback, because the goal of this is basically just to get as much feedback on the script, how to fix it up, how to make the beginning more interesting and stuff like that. I won't make this part any longer, and this first part is going to be connected to the one-shot chapter of the script, which is not necessary for the story. I might even say not really recommended, but yeah, I basically mean you don't have to watch the rest of this to understand the script. You can just skip to the next video if you're curious about that more. Last note I want to add is that this will not be a word-for-word reading, but it's gonna be pretty damn close. If I see something in the script which I worded differently because I need to keep it concise or because it was simpler to write in text, I might just reword it a little bit, but this is still gonna be practically the same. You're not gonna be missing out on any information. You might even learn something new that wasn't originally written. So without further ado, here is the reading of the one-shot called Retrogradient. The first scene opens in the frozen over sky above the edge of a chasm. The huge pit, which its opposite side is too far to be seen, drops downwards into the dense clouds, so the depth of its icy bottom is not even visible. The walls of this cliff do still stand out though, reaching upwards nearly vertically for several thousand meters at least, as if erosion had no time to take effect yet on any part but at the very top. 3 fighter jets fly over the edge towards the chasm, 2 larger Fiascos and 1 smaller Farlander. A pilot called Pine is shown in the cockpit of the smaller Focke-Wulf FW535 Farlander, focusing on something in the distance as his plane pitches down to a shallow dive. A woman asks him over radio about what he saw, and he tells her he found the lone design that she wouldn't shut up about back at base. This woman, Rose, and another pilot called Riptide, who's flying alongside her in an FW440 Fiasco, are shown in their fighter jet cockpits, both surprised at what Pine just told them. Riptide warns him to watch out because even if the lone design doesn't fight back, it may try to drag him deeper into enemy territory. Pine tells him he's right and promises to tell them if he needs them to jump in and help, but he says that he isn't letting the opportunity to make this his first kill slide. Rose is glad he isn't acting as arrogant as he did back during practice. Pine looks back at the small 3-engine canard plane before him and fires a missile at the lone design. However, to his surprise, a few burning flares manage to ward it off as the plane turns rapidly to dodge, aware of its attacker from the get-go. Rose is clearly intrigued, and Riptide is also watching in excitement from a fair distance. Pine quickly aligns to strafe. He fires his autocannon, though the lone design is now too far before him for him to get his gun on target in time. The lone design uses this opportunity to try and dive away, but Pine turns aggressively, bearing the load of the high G-forces to get behind the enemy plane as fast as he can. He turns with the design, trying to get the cannon aimed at it, and after a few carefully made turns, he pulls the trigger and tears off the lone design's right air brake. The design is flying level now, but Pine continues downwards, quickly building up speed he lost while turning. He continues diving and eventually starts to turn his Farlander back upwards, turning on his afterburner to maintain speed while climbing. He gazes up at the lone design, which now looks like a shadow on the sun above him, and he puts his hand on the stick's trigger, ready to fire. He tells Rose and Riptide the lone design lost sight of him, but the two tell him to play it careful. The design is flying straight forward, so he continues his climb with the plane, flying just below the early noon sun that is almost right above him by now. Just as he aligns and readies to pull the trigger on his flight stick, Pine sees the design rapidly roll over. Seconds start growing longer as the 20mm cannon attached to a turret facing right towards him is finally at an angle where he can properly see it. The Farlander passes the design, now with its left intake completely shut up. Pine is livid because of his failure to spot the turret beforehand, so instead of trying to turn away, he turns back around for the design and begins firing while trying to stay in the design's blind spot. At this point, Rose and Riptide are jumping in to help, seeing what is happening to their squadmate. Desperate to shoot the enemy plane down, Pine opens the Farlander's air brake till he gets a perfect firing angle. When he fires, His salvo only crosses the design's centerline piston engine, which takes the brunt of the damage and bursts into thick smoke and flames immediately, saving the rest of the plane from being torn to shreds. Pine stops turning wildly to assess the damage he dealt, but just then, the broken propeller of the enemy plane hits his canopy, caving the glass in and even cutting through it at one part. Now filled with fear and anger, Pine fires his second missile as soon as he gets the lock on. The design dives a bit and then pitches sharply up while throwing out its remaining flares. The missile misses the target before exploding with a delay, too far out of range to damage it. Pine follows the vertically climbing lone design bravely, entering the smoke pillar the design's burning engine is leaving behind itself. Pine flies out of the trail of smoke to fire at it, but the soot and oil has completely covered the front of his canopy. He does his best to shoot down the design, however he cannot confirm any hits due to the oil blocking his view and some noise coming from the radio. He quickly looks at his airspeed indicator to see if he is about to stall, but suddenly the radio noise he hears gets clearer as if he's tuned it out of his mind previously. Rose shouts over to him, yelling at him to brake to the side and that it's a trap. Just then, a splash of what seems to be water hits his canopy, wiping a part of the oil and soot away. Pine freezes as the smoke trail stops, his Farlander breaking into clear air again. A small light on his instrument panel starts flashing, warning him of a con arm lock. Now out of the smoke trail, he sees the lone design facing downwards and towards him, with just its canopy facing away from his. The subtle piercing sound of a spooled up railgun is loud enough to be heard through the broken canopy of the Farlander, and Pine cannot move a muscle. A whistling roar tears through the middle of Pine's plane, causing the entire airframe to bend outwards from the shockwave. The mangled Farlander still stays in a single piece, as the design passes it though, falling towards the ground with the canopy now covered in red from inside. Most chapters won't have this like end comment thing. I'll say what I need to say about the chapter beforehand if there's anything. But I do want to mention the chapter Retrogradient, or chapter 0, this thing. Is the only chapter to have a full storyboard. There were many attempts for the other chapters, but there have been so many changes that they were like never finished. The storyboards are very simple and they're currently outdated, but if you guys do want to see them, you can join like the Discord in the description if you are not there already, which is like very unlikely if you're seeing this video. And yeah, that's it. I'm now gonna go record chapter 1.